Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Author Spotlight. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating author. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi, my name is Susanne Arens. I'm located in Colorado in the United States, and I am an evidential psychic medium. And some might say, how'd that happen? Well, I'm actually just a farm girl that grew up in Minnesota, a very simple life, nothing spectacular. In fact, the whole topic about spirits and mediumship and psychics, that just wasn't in our vocabulary. That wasn't anything we were exposed to. We seen very simple programming like Lawrence Welk and Hee Haw and Happy Days. So this really wasn't a thing. However, since I was a child, I would have deja vu moments. At least that's what I thought they were. As I got older, I learned that they were actually premonitions. I've also had numerous strangers approach me over the years and tell me that I was a psychic medium. And I thought, wow, that's really odd. And so I decided, well, that's very interesting. Thanks so much. But then I started doing some research into it. And that's when the door, as we call it, swung wide open. And it allowed me to connect to the other side. Now, I grew up Catholic, and I have a very strong faith in God. But what I didn't realize was my ability to be able to talk to the other side. That was quite surprising to me. In fact, I didn't realize it had been happening until I finally embraced what I was sensing off in the field, in the vortex out there, and I pulled it in closer to me, and then I realized those were people trying to get my attention. So ever since I've embraced it, I've been off and rolling with it. But I created a book. It's called "There Is No Death: The Spirits of the Evidence of the Spirit World," and in it I talk about different types of beings that I communicate with. Some of them are people, some of them are animals, and some of them are interdimensional beings, which is always an interesting conversation to have. I've never photographed or been around any that I felt were malevolent. I thought they were all very kind and loving, but I always do protect myself when I want to power up or speak with them or just catch pictures and videos of them. I do what's called a white light protection prayer, where I will surround myself with light, healing light, loving light, that kind of puts up a barrier that only entities that are of light and love can approach me. And so I have captured a bunch of evidence of this, which I love sharing with people, especially those that have lost someone, including a pet. It is a thing. It happens more than a person realizes. In fact, when I got into this, I kind of thought those animal whisperers were a joke, if I'm being brutally honest about it, until I was powering up for a reading once years ago, and I had a big dog jump in, and he startled me, and I thought, what's happening? And we had a conversation, and I had him hold out until my client showed up, and I explained what was going on to her, and she was able to validate all of it. That's when I realized, holy Toledo, not only can I speak with people that have passed into spirit, but I can speak to our animals as well. So I thought that was kind of neat. The first time I really had an encounters, like I said, when I was younger, they were deja vu moments. Some were so strong I would get physically ill from them and dry heave. They were so intense. But as I got older, I learned that those were actually premonitions. And the ones that are real significant, where there's going to be death or severe danger, they'll hit me like a ton of bricks. It will be almost as though I'm having a panic attack. It gets overwhelming. So I've learned to realize that when I'm having that emotion and feeling that way, that I need to act on something right away. Time is of the essence. And when I say right away, I mean within hours. It's not something that can wait for days, let alone weeks. It's imminent. And so I've learned about that process. But for me to see the spirits in that world, that all happened one night, as, believe it or not, just innocently. I was falling asleep and I was having a weird interaction. You know, when you're awake and then you're asleep, there's that in-between stage. And I was in that stage when I felt myself floating backwards, and I could see that there was some sort of entities alongside of me. It was kind of dark, and so I wasn't really able to pick up on anything, but I wasn't scared. I wasn't nervous or anything. And that's when my husband comes barging into the bedroom and says, "Oh my God, honey, look what just set off the security camera." And right outside our bedroom window, which is only like 2 feet from the bed where I was laying, was this big orb. And it wasn't just a typical round orb, it had a darker center in it. And it was floating out there. And as soon as he came into the bedroom and said, "Oh my gosh, honey, look what's on the camera," I felt myself coming back into my body, I guess. It was a really weird sensation, as though my eyes are rolling from the back of my head to the front of my head. And it startled me out of it. And I said, what's happening? What? And he explained the whole thing. So that was actually our first encounter, really, with something that's significant. And that really just started the whole process for me. Once we realized that was going on, we decided to set up more cameras in and around our home, in and outside. And we've been able to capture some really amazing, amazing evidence, which I put in my book. It's called "There Is No Death: Evidence of the Spirit World, Spirits and Orbs." There's actually over 70 photos in there. And then if you get the book, of course, I'm giving all the readers the ability to use the QR code in the back, and you can be taken to a hidden web page where you can see some videos that we've captured from not only our security cameras, but when I go out on location as well to capture evidence. And so those are all available. So if anybody's out there saying, malarkey, this isn't true, this isn't happening, she's making it up. No, I'm not. And I've got the evidence to prove it. And I would love to share that all with you guys. I have had throughout my life, a lot of, I guess you would call them near deaths. I've had a lot of close calls throughout my life, even in my childhood. I was a very rambunctious, energetic person. I love adventure. And so, and I was quite a tomboy. And so I loved to do everything that my brother did and hung out with the guys a lot. And so, unfortunately, I put myself in some scary predicaments. I found out later from my spirit guides and guardian angels that they worked overtime to keep me alive. Apparently, I agreed to do something in this lifetime. It was my life plan that we made before I reincarnated into this life. And they're going to make sure I do it, which was creating this book and providing the rest of the world with the evidence that there is no death, just a transition from this world to the next. And so they have done that for me. But, people all have had interesting situations happen to them that you might blow off is not a big deal. But it gets really impactful. I've not been the healthiest of cats. I've had a fair number of different types of cancer and heart surgery. And what it's done with all these near deaths, because I've stopped breathing in surgery and I've had some really close calls over the years, it's thinned the veil between this world and the spirit world. And in doing so, it has allowed me to really amp up my abilities and made my connections to the other side much easier to do. One of the biggest turning points in my life was when we lost our first daughter. I had gone through so much to bring her into this world. I was bedridden for 5 months and on IVs, and it was just a big ordeal. And she had gotten ill. I knew she was ill. I took her to the head of the pediatric department at one of our hospitals. He was supposed to be the best of the best in town, and he didn't listen to me, and he said there was nothing wrong with her. And unfortunately, she passed away the very next morning from pneumonia. I can talk about it now without coming unhinged, but back then I couldn't even say her name without literally turning into a absolute wreck. But because we lost her, I was angry. I was hurt. I demanded answers. I started doing a lot of research. I started reading a lot of books about NDE, which is near-death experiences. I've watched a lot of shows. I then learned about psychics and mediums. I watched TV shows that dealt with this and anything I could literally find. One of the best books I came across was by Melvin Morose, and it was called Closer to the Light, learning from near-death experiences of children. And I found great comfort in that. It's just a simple paperback, and I read it from front to back nonstop. And of course, I cried hysterically through the whole thing, but it provided me with much, much needed comfort, knowing that she wasn't alone, she wasn't scared, and that she would be there for us. And I bought that book for many, many other people that have lost their children as well, just because it provided me such healing that I was hopeful that it would do that for others.
What a journey you have been on to find the spiritual side of yourself, Susanne. It's absolutely incredible listening to you. You and I share a history. I was brought up Catholic as well, so I know what it's like to come out of a very religious upbringing and then crossing over to a more spiritual way of being is completely different.
Yeah.
So, can you explain what spirit orbs are and how you first encountered them?
Yes. So I love talking about this because they're so, so different. Some are people, some are animals, and some are interdimensional beings, which, believe it or not, it's become such a popular topic, and other people are getting such amazing evidence that there's really becoming this blurry line between interdimensional and spiritual. They're kind of getting put all into one bucket. And you can say when you talk about interdimensional stuff, well, you could classify UAPs, alien communications into that whole lump, which to me has gotten real interesting. My first one was what I was just saying earlier, is when I was falling asleep and I had that entity, it was pretty big, show up outside our bedroom window, just feet from where I was laying, where I was having this encounter. And it has been back. We did catch it again on surveillance about a year ago, but I don't recall being taken any place or having an experience with it. But our surveillance in and outside our house catches some really shocking stuff. And a lot of that, of course, is in the book.
Wow. And now, for people who are seeing these orbs appearing in their photographs, how do you interpret them? How do you work with orbs? What are they trying to communicate? Why are they showing up?
Usually, so that's such a great question, and it's so faceted. So let me just kind of take it piece by piece. So a lot of times, if you're just randomly catching them, it could just be family or friends or pets that happen to be hanging out with you, or if you're in a location that is known to be haunted or had a lot of human activity, like battlefields, old hotels, old cruise lines, or old ships, battleships, all that kind of stuff. There's so much history there. It's hard to say what you're all going to get. I will tell people, though, if you want to connect with somebody in particular, quiet your mind. Go into a meditation. In fact, I offer a free meditation guide you can download. You can get it from my website. So you have to quiet your mind, get out of it, right? And they say we have monkey minds, right? It's go, 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 go. And some of us may be ADHD or what, and squirrel. We're so easily distracted that trying to learn to meditate is really a chore. That's why I put together a guide. But you need to do that. Quiet your mind and then call for them. So if you want your father or a child or your dog to show up, call for them, tell them how much you miss them and how much you really appreciate a visit. Now, they might leave you signs, because clients will come for readings and they'll say, I've been trying to get a hold of my son, but he never shows up. He never gives me a sign. And the son will tell me, yeah, I did. Where do you think all that happened? And they'll start listing all these things that they've done to get their attention. And then my clients will often go, oh, wait, what? That was him? And I'm thinking, don't dismiss the little things, right?
Yeah.
And so they might appear as an orb or something completely different. I don't always know what I've captured unless I specifically called for it or know that I was in this particular location and caught it. So as example, I was in Canton Battlefield in Franklin, Tennessee. And as soon as we got there, I thought, let me see if any soldiers want to come and talk to me. So I went into meditation, quiet my mind, and this young man did. And he shared some really surprising things with me, which I thought, that's very interesting. And showed me how he came in and everything that took place and how he came with his friends from the South, and he was going to show the North how they were going to do it and all this kind of stuff. And unfortunately, he didn't survive, nor did his friends. But what was so interesting is he gave me his name, and I was actually able to look him up in the Civil War archives. His name, for expelling, where he came from, everything, his age, it all fell in line. And so that's where I thought, wow, that's so fascinating. So when I took pictures and I said, hey, Rugley, would you please show up for me again? I'd love to get your photo. And a big blue orb popped right up in front of me so I could photograph it. I have no doubt that was him, right?
Yeah.
But I don't always know. However, I was in my bedroom. We were getting ready to take a trip, and I felt something odd happening around me. And so I took out my camera, my cell phone, just this simple little device. You can use your Canon, Nikon, SLL camera or your digital, whatever you want. It's all the same. So I pulled it up and I started videotaping, and I could see this funny like spirit coming. It wasn't an orb shape. It was more of a fuzzy abstract thing floating towards me. And I immediately knew it was my kitty, Victoria, who had passed. And I said, Victoria, is that you? And she, you know what cats do, right? They come up to you and she's on the ground and, they wrap themselves around your legs. And that's what she did. And it's all on camera. In fact, I share it on my social media. So if everybody's thinking I'm storytelling, I have the evidence out there. You can see it yourself. So she went up there, which was really cool. We also had a pet duck. It was just a mallard duck. And we loved her. We had two over time. And when the last one passed, I was really torn up about it. And anyways, she flew to me in our bedroom. I literally have it on video, and it looks just like the shape of a bird, right? So it starts here and kind of goes up with the wings, flew in, flew up to me, and flew back. And I have one too where she did that outside on the deck. So I have absolutely no doubt it looked like a bird. I have absolute doubt it was Victoria, or excuse me, the truffles flying up to me to say hello as she flew away. So. And then, in fact, the other night, another animal story, we had a dog. We rescue dogs, and we've had other dogs as well. And one of our last dogs, she's getting up in age, and she had a real close call. She almost died. But she survived, and we took her home. And you know how I was saying that, the veil gets thinned for us, especially if we've had near death, right? Well, it must work for dogs the same way, because she started that very night. She started just standing there like barking, but not like aggressively barking, just like barking, like she's talking to somebody in the kitchen in the dark. And she did this night after night. I thought, what in the world is going on? Then it dawned on me, oh my gosh, she sees our other pets. Oh my gosh. And so I pulled out my cell phone and I ran over to the kitchen. And she's standing there, and I said, and she loved one of our dogs we had. His name was Toby. And I said, Toby, if you're here, and I could see spirits flying around, but I said, Toby, if you're here, would you please show up in a color for me? And then I realized how silly that sounded. I'm thinking, do dogs see color? I'm thinking, I'm like, sorry, buddy, I guess I shouldn't have asked you that. But he flew by, and the orb went from white to teal to pink to blue to purple to green to blue. All the way to color as it flew through. So obviously, dogs understand color in the spirit world. So it does happen. But the thing is they're all different. I think I sent you that one picture. I've got, like I said, over 70 photos in my book. Here are just a few. I don't know how well that's showing up. And these are different. There's no two that are ever the same. Circular round ones, lots of people can get those. Those are, we get.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the passing of your daughter. That was a pivotal moment in your life. How did this tragedy influence your quest for understanding the afterlife, do you think?
I um, I was shocked that we lost her. I had gone through so much to bring her into this world. I was told I was never going to carry her to full term, and I was going to prove them wrong. And so my body kept trying to abort the pregnancy, starting at about 4.5 months. And so I spent the rest of the pregnancy literally in bed and on IVs and then giving injections and things like that to get to the finish line. And the day she was born, we had a blizzard. And I knew something was really, really wrong in the morning before the snow even started flying. And I'd gone to the hospital and they turned me right. They said, "Nope, you're fine. There's nothing wrong. You're just overreacting. You're first time mother."
Mm,
Got worse. So then I went to my doctor's office and the same thing. "Oh, you're overreacting." Well, by the time night fell, we're in full blown blizzard and I'm in so much pain. I can't even swear. I was in so much pain. And that's saying a lot. We get to the hospital and there's no doctor even there,
oh,
just
God.
nursing. And they started listening for heartbeat and checking me out. And the one nurse said, "Why didn't you come in sooner? We're going to lose the baby. You're going to lose the baby."
Oh.
Of course, now I'm hysterical because I had gone for help
Yeah.
and was ignored. But the doctor finally eventually got there. It was an emergency C-section. We both survived. Back in the day, it would have said, died in childbirth, but we didn't. She did great. But then I got this sinking feeling that something was wrong. She wasn't breathing right. And I took her to a pediatrics office at the hospital. He was the head of the pediatric department, so I figured he was the best of best in town. And I said, "She's not breathing right. I have a really bad feeling. Please, please, please do something. I'm never going to forgive myself if something happens to her." And he says, "Oh, she's just fine. You're overreacting." I said, "No, no, please." And I begged him.
Mm,
He reassured me she was fine. And she died the very next morning in the daycare. And the autopsy proved she had pneumonia. And
wow.
so, needless to say, my whole life changed. And, you just don't value things that you used to think were important.
Mm,
You realize
that's what
aren't.
happened.
You get to a point where you're wheeling and dealing with God to take your
Mm,
life, just let her live, right? Take my house, take my car, take my life, just
mm,
let her live. So I became very angry, started
yeah.
swearing to God every day, stopped going to church, started researching because I demanded answers. How dare he take her from me? How
Mm,
dare you do that to me? There's children starving in the world. There's children being beaten in the world. And you would take my child after everything I went through to bring her into this world? And that's when I found books and shows, and I learned about NDE, and I found that Melvin Monroe's book, Closer to the Light, and it's all these near-death stories that children tell. So everybody's under the age of 16 in the book, and they died and had an experience when they were clinically dead, and then we were revived, and the stories they told and the people they met. And that brought me so much comfort. It's just a simple paperback book, but I read it from beginning to end and cried hysterically all the way through it. But that's what kind of started me down this whole path of
mhm.
understanding what psychics and mediums were and the differences and how it all works. Like how do you tap into the other side? What is that like? So it's different, for everybody, but that's really the catalyst.
You've mentioned the roles of your spirit guide, Sabrina, and your guardian angel, Michael. How did you first become aware of their presence, and how have they guided you throughout your life?
That is such an interesting story, actually.
Mm,
So I was in meditation and I was trying to see who I would have around me, right? Because I read books and watched YouTube videos and shows, and I'm thinking, okay, well, they're supposed to be there. So I quieted my mind. I was in meditation, and this gal showed up. And she looked a lot like Audrey Hepburn, a young Audrey Hepburn, and she had a little clutch under her
mm,
arm and her hair and everything. And she was pretty. And she let me know that she was one of my spirit guides. And I thought, wow, that's fascinating. I didn't know that. And she told me some of the things. And then on another day, another time I was meditating, I met this guy, Michael, not Archangel Michael, just his name was also Michael. And he
Mhm.
let me know that he was one of my guardian angels. So then I thought, hmm, am I making this stuff up? Right? This is just my imagination. After all, I am a creative. And I thought, did I just construe all this myself? So I actually hired a pretty famous medium and asked her for a reading. And in fact, I hired five, and I had never hired any before. And I hired five. Bing, bing, bing. Because I wanted to see, right? Are they all full of crap? Do they know what they're talking about? Can they provide answers? And so
Yes.
I said the same thing to each one. They said, well, what kind of reading do you want? What can I do for you today? And I said, I just want to know two things. And I said, who am I and what am I? And they all said the same thing. Oh, wow, you're a medium. Like you're like you have all the clairs. And they were saying all these. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. You just want more money, kind of thing. And I said, oh, okay. So I hear that we have like guides and angels and things around us. And they all said the same thing. Oh, yeah, we all do. I said, oh, that's interesting. I said, so my guide, what's his name? Because I already knew it wasn't a guy, it was a gal. Her name was Brit, right? I said, oh, what's his name? And she goes, oh, your main guardian, it's a woman. I said, oh, what does she look like? Described a young Audrey Hepburn. I said, oh, that's so interesting. What's her name? And she goes, it's like a Sabina. She was trying to spell Sabrina. And that's when I went, wait, what's happening? And so then I said, well, guardian angel, what's her name? She goes, oh, well, that's actually a guy. And his name is Michael.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, son of a biscuit. There we go. So then I realized I'm actually having a conversation with these people. In fact, the one gal, she says, yeah, Sabrina, she goes, she's filing her nails right now. And she's telling me, you're a lot of work. And honestly, I found that hysterical because, yeah, I've been a lot of work. I was a very active, dangerous child. And in
Oh,
my adult life, I guess that really didn't change either. I've been in
yes.
a lot of accidents and all sorts, motorcycle and car and boat and you name it. And then I've had all these illnesses and cancers and things of that nature. And so when she was filing her nails saying I was a lot of work, I'm thinking, yeah, I can take that. So sorry. So sorry. I'll try to do better.
I love it. Now, with the last few minutes that we have, I would love to take you back to the younger you, the young woman who realized she had these unusual abilities. Just in case there's somebody who is listening to this podcast right now and is going through things they can't explain, what three nuggets would you give to somebody who's starting out? What would you have wanted somebody to have told you when you found yourself on this path?
That's an excellent question because I didn't have anybody. I didn't know anybody like me. And I didn't know where to go for information. I literally had to try to figure out and navigate this myself. What I would tell anybody that feels like they might have some abilities or see that their child might be acting a little bit different at times, I would encourage you to. Well, I guess you could go to my website to look at the different types of like services and because that's really your abilities, right? Being able to be psychic versus medium and that kind of thing. But there's a lot of books out right now on the subject, and there's a lot you can find on YouTube. And there's a tremendous amount of people holding classes where they will teach tarot cards or pendulums or psychic classes or palm reading classes. There's a litany of things out there, but be very careful. I've taken a lot of classes. I bet I have spent $20,000 on my education taking class. And I still occasionally will take a class from somebody that I find interesting. But there's a lot of fakes out there. And the best thing I would tell you is if you ever go to one or take classes or read something and they go dark on you or they're saying something negative, you just need to say thank you and leave because that's really not how this works. I have never in all the readings I've done and all the exchanges of information with the other side that I've had. Nothing has ever been dark. And so if anybody does that, just know they're probably fake and they're making stuff up and they're coming from where they are and their heart is in their place. But there's a lot of really great teachers and they all have different styles of teaching, right? So what I would say is start with one and work your way through it for weeks to months, right? See if it's resonating with you, and then try a different one in different classes. So every instructor teaches differently and they all offer different types of classes, and you'll find one will resonate better with you than another. You might find that you're really great with Reiki, which is healing with hands, right? And energy and crystals and tuning forks and stuff like that. That might be in your genre. Or you might be an animal communicator, right? Where you really feel and connect to the animals. So that maybe that's in your wheelhouse. But don't try to take classes from different people at the same time, because they have different processes and different ways that they do things, and it will really screw you up, right? But one step at a time. But if your child starts saying things to you, do not disregard them. Ask them for more questions, right? And then buy some books and do some reading with them. Try to figure it out, because it's really quite fascinating. But I will tell you, it isn't for everyone. So just know that even if you or your child has abilities, research it, see if it's really right for you, because it really isn't a good fit, right? Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Now, last question. This book.
Yes.
Give us a rundown of what you've covered in the book, what people can expect from your book as well, and where people can buy it.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you. So the book starts out telling some anecdotal kind of stories, very short, little couple paragraphs each, of some of these things I was talking about, some of my NDEs, some of my experiences I had, because I really felt like people can resonate with that, especially parents, right? I really feel like parents, and particularly mothers that carry this child for 9-10 months, you really make this connection, and you know yourself and your child better than
anyone else,
anybody else, including doctors. And so I talk about all the times the medical field has let me down. I wouldn't be here today had I not insisted and pushed forward with what I felt was happening in my gut. Even when the specialist said it was nothing and blew it off, I would have died so many times had I just said, oh, okay, that's all it is, and left. But I knew better. And I think by people reading some of these stories, it's going to resonate with them. And maybe, just maybe, it will save their life or the life of their child. So that's how the book starts. And then I kind of go into talking about how I capture them, right? And I start providing the evidence. And then I actually provide like what equipment I use to take that photo with. And I talk about the places I've gone and some of these historical sites that I've been to, where I've connected with the people that were there at the time, that it was in use, which was fantastic. And the pictures, so the pictures go along with the stories. But then right at the end as well, I have a bonus section that is a step-by-step tutorial to show people how to capture their own evidence. And then again, as I was saying earlier, the QR code in the back, if they zap it, it'll take them to a special hidden private VIP page where they can see videos where a lot of the photos came out of. So if they say, she photoshopped it, she faked it. No, I didn't. And here's the proof.
I love it. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming online and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you.
It's always fascinating when I meet different authors who are giving us tools and means for us to understand this universe we live in. The spirit world is fascinating once you start delving into it.
Yes.
So thank you for writing this book.
Oh, thank you so much, Gertrude. Appreciate it.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. Author Spotlight is bringing you the stories and books of people from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, inspire you, energize you, and empower you. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And thanks again for the interview.
Thank you so very much for the opportunity.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making